All right. And we are live. This is Tropics Watch for September 13th, 2020. And we got plenty to get to, especially with the threat of Tropical Storm Sally. We can see the, I'm going to go further down there. All right. Obviously, that's the system. That's the one invest down there. Yep, Tropical Storm Sally. There we are. So yeah, here's the latest with satellite. We can see how quickly things are spawning there in terms of convection there. Like it's really erupting out of there, and we can see there is an organized broad circulation there. Some in mid and upper levels, things are really tough there. What do you think of satellite here, Cameron?
Well, it looks like we are looking at what everybody was obviously talking about earlier today with this very intense rapid intensification process, just as we saw with Laura. As you could see, during these little systems like so, the overnight time is usually the best time for these storms to really blow up. And as you can see on satellite, you can see more intense circulation with these intense individual supercells even blowing up around the center now, which is kind of what we were not wanting to see. But it is looking like Sally could be another one of them really dangerous setups.
So the best thing to do is don't let your guard down. Take this pretty seriously. If you have to evacuate now. Just don't wait until the Coast Guard has to come out there and rescue you. Because some people don't, right, Isaac?
Yeah. So I will point out that obviously areas such as New Orleans, between New Orleans, areas in Mississippi, and some other coastal parishes in Louisiana have started the process. You know, areas near bayous or outside of levee protection areas. There have been some mandatory evacuations, and this would include sections of the city of New Orleans, not the whole city, of course. But yeah, I mean, as we can see, the system has its persistent westward motion there, and it's very slow and progressive motion. And with how the system is tracking pretty slowly, it has more time to intensify and more clearance to intensify before it makes landfall tomorrow evening. So it still has 24 hours till landfall, and when we do get that further northward motion as we get closer into landfall, of course, I mean that'll kind of clear the way for additional intensification as well. So I mean, as this kind of hangs over water, this is going to really rapidly intensify there, and you can see the well-defined center there where all those brighter colors are. You can see that we're starting to get a little bit stronger intensification there on satellite. I think that things are really looking as if they are rapidly intensifying. And I will pull up the intensity guidance here just to give you guys a perspective of how we're expecting things to turn out there. So yeah, there's our intensity guidance projection there. We can there are many different outputs, of course, but a lot of times this scatter plot could be slightly underdone. I've definitely noticed. What I'm worried about, as I've been saying when I've been showing these graphics, isn't where the actual dots are located in terms of wind speed knots and whatnot, but it's actually the rate of intensification. So how things are progressing from one place to another. And as you know, the rapid intensification kind of gives me an idea of like how things could turn out. I'm not saying with absolute certainty that this will end up being a higher end hurricane by any means for Sally. So, like, I will still say, regardless of what category Sally turns out to be, there will still be very broad impacts across the Gulf Coast, including storm surge and very heavy rains. So,
We
okay.
definitely want to have plenty of food and plenty of water and stuff, and definitely expect isolated and maybe widespread power outages. You think so, Cameron?
Potentially. I pretty much hit the nail on the head though when it comes to right now the main impacts with Sally, as we all seen from the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service looking at different graphics, is the very extensive rainfall and storm surge, especially being in a very prone region for flooding, New Orleans and surrounding areas around Lake Pontchartrain and then coastal Mississippi and parts of the coastal parishes of Louisiana.
We already have that. Places now even building. If everything's still a mess down there, it's not even all built back yet. That's the problem.
Well, these areas have not been impacted yet from anything of any major systems currently this year. I mean, you just had Laura here a couple weeks ago to the west here. But this is the most populated area of the state of Louisiana. It's a very big populated vacation site across the state of Mississippi and Alabama as well. So, of course, you're probably going to start seeing double red flag warnings tomorrow across the coast, pretty much from about Apalachicola all the way into central coast of Louisiana. And then the storm surge warnings and hurricane warnings are ensuing as well, especially around Pontchartrain, New Orleans, Gulfport, Mississippi, even over to Dauphin Island and Alabama and places of that nature.
And I would not throw out flash flood emergencies, right, Isaac?
Oh, yes. Yes.
That's going to be the highest thing.
Flash
I
flooding
will point out, JD Cameron, with that flash flood threat, obviously we're starting to see flash flood watches, tropical storm hurricane watches, storm surge watches. Those are those of what we've been seeing, or rather, they're warnings now. Storm surge warnings and hurricane warnings have been popping up throughout the afternoon. Tropical storm warnings, and I will point out that there's since the system's going to be slower to track over the area, I will point out, just like I said earlier with that satellite, I'm gonna pull that up once again, just to show you guys kind of the slow movement that I'm concerned about with. Just showing you guys the satellite there. We can see how the system is nearly stationary or just hovering over the same area. I mean, and as it'll kind of be the same way. I mean, some areas you can see are being, a lot of this activity is just training over or just hovering over the same area. So persistent heavy rain near the Gulf. I mean, obviously 20 plus inches around the coast, and obviously embedded heavier totals. It could definitely be much higher. So obviously combine that with the storm surge flooding. I mean, you'll get runoff all over the place. Some areas
do not drive your car through that area.
Only people on like higher ground, higher floors, like people near the coast should be prepared, or like along the shore should prepare to move much further inland. I mean,
or they should be already gone by now. I mean, this is not the time just to hit down the road right now.
Yeah, sure. And that's another reason why they have evacuation orders in place for sections of New Orleans and other parishes like Orleans Parish, St. John the Baptist Parish. All these other parishes are issuing some form of evacuation orders. I believe a lot of them are mandatory evacuation orders for those
anymore because we have COVID-19, so we just don't have these shelters, right?
So I will point out that obviously, especially areas near New Orleans and whatnot, I think the more backed up roadways and interstate highways There are also areas from New Orleans to Gulfport to Mobile, all those major areas. There's gonna be a number of people that are gonna attempt to flee that area over the interstates. And I mean, if we end up seeing a mandatory evacuation for like a highly populated area like New Orleans, you can definitely expect things like contraflow and stuff like that to be enacted on.
And emergency coverage also too if things get out of hand.
Well, I mean, that's in terms of the storm surge and flash flood concerns. I think those are the more dangerous concerns with Sally at this point, especially like wind impacts and everything. I mean, a very low tornado threat. I will agree because
I won't roll one tornado out too.
Pressure's not going to wrap. I don't necessarily think that the pressure's going to get that low, like with Laura. I mean, it would have to be very deep pressure gradients within there, and obviously that would indicate a lot of that air from just above the surface is mixing in at the ground, and obviously low level shear is what really does drive that tornado threat. So I mean, I think that wind shear is not going to be.
Well, here's
not going to be near
thing
as favorable as it was with Laura and other recent systems for a tornado.
Here's another thing I was going to tell you, Isaac. I just want to say one thing, that we would be having a little more concern of trees coming down because there's going to be so much water and the roots are just not going to take that.
Yeah, right. So yeah, definitely do expect some larger trees and stuff near the coast. I mean, they could end up being washed away, and that will add to the debris concern. And obviously, trees, power poles, all that could be impacted. Unanchored structures, mobile homes and stuff will be extremely dangerous, particularly those like within a couple miles of the coast where the more significant flooding headlines are. Obviously, people should be on higher ground. That's kind of our concern. And with the 20 inches of rain potentially on the center and just east of the center, just within that proximity, there's going to be plenty of elevation changes, especially as this tracks over the Gulf Coast, and the remnants are expected to track over the Tennessee Valley here, heading into Wednesday, Thursday, and whatnot into the Appalachians as well. So there's also plenty of elevation changes in that area as well. So I mean, significant flash flooding is definitely a concern for.
And there's a high risk.
Yeah. So the Weather Prediction Center has that very well defined. The high flash flood potential. I think it's moderate heading into tomorrow, but the day after it's definitely high.
The day after is high risk. Yes.
Yeah, I think
we don't normally see that.
Yeah, I mean that is not necessarily common. I think it's more common with flash flooding. It's not as common, obviously, seeing a high risk of severe weather from the Storm Prediction Center. The Weather Prediction Center is obviously identifying like any kind of weather phenomena, like rain, snow, and all that, precipitation. The Storm Prediction Center is mostly concerned about thunderstorms, severe storms, and all those more like mesoscale features, So I mean, just precipitation and stuff like that. That is mostly stuff you see from the Weather Prediction Center. So high risks are more common with flash flooding, but I mean, this is still going to be a very concerning situation for
dangerous situation.
I do want to point out though, this is kind of a Harvey-ish kind of setup that we have with Sally. With a little slower motion, especially as it begins its northward progression toward landfall, and with these very high rainfall amounts that it's projected to have. It's very Harvey-ish like, just without having a Category 4 intensity hurricane making landfall and stalling out for 4 to 5 days.
What about Hurricane Irma?
It's not necessarily. Irma wasn't a very slow-moving hurricane at all.
Okay.
Irma was actually more of a faster-moving hurricane. But this has a Harvey kind of like similarities, especially with this intensification overnight. Just not the deep progression the deep intensification that we saw with like Laura Laura or Harvey, for instance. But it has the rainfall amount, it has the storm surge to go along with that makes it somewhat relevant to what Harvey was like in Texas. But as Isaac has stated, storm surge and flash flooding is going to be the big deal. There's really a lot of questions on what the category will be at landfall, whether it stays at Category 1 to tropical storm force, or Sally goes through this very big time intensification process overnight. We wake up in the morning, we have Category 2 to Category 3 progression before landfall.
I won't roll it out sometimes.
I really think, just based off of a lot of the models, that more than likely we will look at a Category 1 to Category 2 Sally at landfall. And there's still some questions on the track. There's a lot of the models that have the track going more toward Houma, Louisiana, and then up through New Orleans, and then making the track off to the northeast. Whereas other models like the NAM and the NAM 3 kilometer have been suggesting more of a landfall east of New Orleans and east of Lake Pontchartrain near the Mississippi coast, and then making its progression to the northeast.
But I want to say, I'm going to say the same thing, that anywhere the hurricane hits doesn't mean down in Louisiana or what Cameron said, it's going to make a mess and be a bunch of cleanup afterwards. Ditches and creeks and homes are going to be flooded. That's another thing. It doesn't matter where it's going to hit at, right, Isaac?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, while areas like New Orleans will definitely see some impacts, we will definitely rule that out. I mean, there's going to be more broader impacts across the Gulf Coast. So, I mean, storm surge, more in particular, will be areas like the Louisiana, Mississippi coast, and maybe into the Alabama coast as well. I mean, definitely there's going to be widespread rainfall impacts. I mean, tropical storm force winds will probably extend outward 100 or so plus miles from the center, like maybe 200, I don't know, but I mean, near the center, I mean, probably 50 so miles. There could be some broader scale hurricane force conditions along the coast. So, I mean, while New Orleans may still see hurricane force winds by some degree, of course. And again, near the center, I mean, that's going to be where the worst of it happens. So, I mean, again, this does have a shot of becoming a Category 2, maybe a slight potential if it may get to Category 3. It is conceivable. It just depends on how long it takes for the system to track into whether that northerly track occurs sooner or how long this system remains over the Gulf. I mean, just slowly to track. I mean, it has more time to intensify, and I mean, the pressures. I think there's not going to be as much of a dramatic pressure drop with Sally as opposed to like Laura. But I mean,
it will all depend on what happens tonight. I think beginning tonight and then into the morning time hours tomorrow. Tonight's really a big focal point of what Sally's real potential is going to be when it comes to a wind field standpoint. If we get that big time gradiency fall and pressure fall overnight, kind of like Laura did, and we wake up in the morning to a Category 2 hurricane, then we could be looking at real big problems, possible worst case scenario kind of deal for New Orleans and areas like that. But if we wake up in the morning, we see that Sally's just getting into hurricane stage, like lower end of the spectrum of a Category 1, I don't think we won't have too much to worry about when it comes to the wind field standpoint of Sally. But that won't change the fact that storm surge and rainfall is going to be life-threatening, catastrophic kind of deal.
This is probably like Hurricane Gordon, right? It dropped all that flooding, right, Cameron?
I mean, this is going to be a very high flooding type of hurricane. This isn't going to be a hurricane that's moving 10 to 15, 20 miles an hour to the north. It's going to get out, dump 5 to 8 inches of rain, and be done. It's already up into the mid-south, maybe up to the Tennessee Valley. Excuse me. The system's going to slow down to about that 7 to 9 mile per hour range as it makes that north progression of landfall, and then just dump torrential amounts of rain. Torrential amounts of rain.
I agree.
Especially along the Mississippi and Louisiana coast.
if you have to travel, do
I
not go through a flooding waters.
I do
It's gonna be
know
dangerous.
I have several friends of mine who have been given mandatory evacuations at Dolphin Island, Alabama. They're already doing mandatory evacuations
Hmm.
across Baldwin County, including Mobile areas are already going under evacuations, and then
Okay.
there are some current evacuations in progress
Any
across
schools closed down there?
Biloxi, Gulf Coast. Uh, More than
I mean,
likely will be. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me
Okay.
if there were. But this isn't the major hurricane that we were all talking about just not long ago with Laura. I don't think this will be a major hurricane, thankfully.
Yeah, that's good.
But it's also a Gulf of Mexico powder keg that could still do the same thing that Laura did. We're hoping that's not the case. I don't think it will be the case though. I don't have the confidence in Sally as I did with Laura. But
See, Laura was a bunch of. I mean, it came from the.
Sally still needs to be watched very closely because I mean, like like we've all been stating, this rainfall and this storm surge is going to be pretty intense. I mean, you don't need to have a strong hurricane to have millions, even into the billions of dollars worth of damage. Storm
And
surge
like I
and
said,
flooding
this is
rain,
another
especially
thing.
during a levee breach, will be a problem. So,
Well, like I
river
said, we'll
flooding,
all.
coastal flooding, storm surge. I mean, you're gonna have it out of Sally with this. I mean, even the flooding can go all the way even into parts of the peninsula of Florida, just with these little heavier feeder bands that will come on shore. But it looks like the heavier rainfall and flooding threat will be from about Destin, Florida, all the way over into New Orleans. Um, even points to the west of New Orleans, Lake Pontchartrain, areas of that nature. I mean, this is a very active September. I mean, we haven't even gotten into the other tropical systems and hurricanes that we currently have going on in the Atlantic. I mean, September is going to go down in the history books. It's probably the most active month for tropical systems on record. Very 2005-ish like. Just without all the major hurricane landfalls that we've had. We've had one major hurricane make landfall in the U.S. I believe in 05 we had 3, and they were all within a month period.
That was bad.
So
definitely.
05 was
Yeah,
horrible.
I mean, just look at like the potential for going back into alpha and beta, and like I don't know the
Going
progression
into
of
the
Greek
Greek
alphabet.
alphabet,
Like I mean, the
wow,
last
and we're almost there. We're only 2 weeks
Yep.
into September, and we're already almost in the Greek alphabet. We have, I think, they don't do V. I think they go to W, and then that's it. I think after W they go to the Greek alphabet. They don't do all 26 letters of the
So
of your
if we
standard
run out
alphabet.
of
Then they go into the
names,
Greek.
if we run out of hurricane names, what do they do, Cameron?
They'll start with the Greek alphabet, so they'll go into that, and then some of the storms will get named like something 1, something 2, something 3, up to 4, and then they'll go on to the next letter of the Greek alphabet, and they'll go 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, and then progress.
This is a bad hurricane season
We
this year.
we are very well looking at the Greek alphabet coming.
I can see
we
it.
are already looking at Teddy. We have Teddy coming this week. Teddy will be a major hurricane by Friday. I believe Category 5 status will come with Teddy over the weekend. Just
What do
from
you think,
looking at the
Isaac?
data on Teddy, Teddy could be a Category 5 by the weekend in the open Atlantic.
Yeah, let's look at the intensity guidance for Teddy while we're saying that. I mean, it has a shot. I will point that out.
It will
Hold
be a
on.
minimum of a Category 3 hurricane by Thursday, with Category 4 intensity possibly coming on
Excuse me.
Friday.
Are we tracking
And I
Teddy?
think it does have. Teddy is so far out into the Atlantic that it really doesn't have any impacts toward the U.S. And it's the same thing with
I don't
Paulette.
think Teddy's named yet.
No, Teddy
Isn't
is
it
not named yet.
20L?
Teddy will be named. Teddy will be named within the next 24 hours, though.
Yeah, sure. Obviously, it's
There he
projected
is.
to be a major hurricane by 2 p.m. Friday. at the very least. And obviously, I'm pulling up the intensity guidance. There's one output at high-end Category 4 status. So, I mean, it definitely has that shot. And I do have this pulled up on stream. Yeah. So, I mean, look at the rate of intensification, how it's gradual and it gets really more rapid there, heading towards 108 hours where peak intensity is. I mean, and then obviously this is still over water, so I mean, land impacts probably aren't that serious, but this is still a pretty serious system here. You can definitely see the rate of intensification. It gets really stronger there near peak, and then
it gets very intense.
And it could hover at Cat 4, maybe low in Cat 5. Who knows? Strength for a while. So while
it looks like it'll get to a very high intensity point, and then it'll plane.
Expecting with that.
Yeah, and then we have Paulette getting ready to make impacts into Bermuda. I think tomorrow, I believe, we'll begin making impacts in the Bermuda, and then once it veers off to the northeast out of Bermuda, it's also projected to become a Category 3 hurricane, I believe.
Is that one, or we'll track that one?
Oh, that's Paulette. I will not be keeping tabs on Paulette other than, after impacts of Bermuda. I think it's only supposed to hit Bermuda as a Category 2, I believe. And we'll make Category 3 status well after it leaves Bermuda.
Yeah, here's Paulette. You can see the defined eye in there. There's a defined eye, so and there's symmetry, so it is intensifying. There is
974 millibars
going on, and here's Paulette's intensity guidance. See, it looks like maybe high-end Cat 2, Cat 3 at landfall. It is possible. I will not rule that out. Just looking at this.
Once it gets up into the colder waters of the Northeast, it will begin to weaken drastically.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think with the ocean currents and stuff and the Atlantic, I mean, obviously it goes from warmer to cooler. I mean, obviously it's going to impact cooler, more stable conditions. So it's going to start to weaken after that, but it still has several days of hovering over the more temperate latitudes, the more temperate latitudes near the tropics and whatnot. I mean, so as it goes further up in the temperate latitudes and everything, where the sea surface temperatures do drop, I mean, obviously just 70s. I mean, normally we start seeing sea surface temperatures over 80 degrees being kind of where the threshold where we start seeing some more tropical systems or like increase in intensification. So like the center can move over 70 degrees sea surface temperatures, and I mean, it could still hold together with its tropical characteristics for some time before it eventually weakens to like a lower end hurricane, back to a depression, storm, whatnot. So
I think they'll call them. I think once they get toward the European coast, they call them intertropical cyclones. I believe is what they're called, intertropical cyclones.
Air tropical cycle. Oh yeah, because isn't it that when obviously it curves off and then it goes into near Europe, and I think it's because obviously they may still have tropical characteristics or like the tropical kind of thing where it's still a cyclone, but again,
more like they would be almost like a cold full, almost, I guess you could say. I don't really know how that works once they get that far north into like Europe and areas of that nature. But I have seen where they have made landfall up in Scotland, areas like that, as a Category 1 hurricane. So, it's pretty cool. Very rare, but very cool. And then, I mean, after we deal with Paulette and Teddy, we have 2 more waves coming off of Africa that we need to watch again. So, I mean, September is just going to be a never-ending.
In October, too?
I mean, we could be looking at the first couple weeks of October being fairly active as well. But,
yeah,
I mean, we still have. We look at the tropical wave train.
One there.
We have 7 systems on this map. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're post-peak. But, I mean, generally, it's not the peak that's the problem. Like like after the peak, generally it tends to be a little bit higher activity. So you know what I mean? So like just like how the high temperature generally doesn't happen at noon during the day, it's because
Happens
it
at
has
about
to
3 or
absorb
4
all that
p.m.
incoming shortwave radiation and kind of emits this long wave. So I mean, it takes like several hours. I mean, there's still incoming stuff. I mean, the sun doesn't have to be positioned up here. I mean, there's more progressive impacts as we go throughout the season. And as we head into like November, of course, obviously the conditions are going to be too cold to favor the development of tropical cyclones, unless it's like near the equator and whatnot. So that generally shouldn't be concerned across the Atlantic. Maybe the South Atlantic, just not the North Atlantic.
I mean, but still, this is September.
Yeah, and Paulette is already a hurricane.
Yeah, Paulette is already a hurricane. Paulette's looking upside the head of major hurricane status. Then we'll have Teddy coming. And then we have that wave just to the northwest of Teddy, or northeast of Teddy. And then we'll have the system come. Yeah, and then we'll have the system off the coast of Africa. And I believe that's got a 40 to 60% chance in the 5-day.
It actually has a 30% in 5 days. This one has
a 30 and 5.
This one has 70%, just north.
Yeah, that's
north
Teddy.
East of Teddy. Yeah, this one will likely become. Is there a U name or does it skip U?
It goes to W. It goes to W.
Oh, it skips U and V, the letters.
Yes, it skips U and V, goes to W, and it skips X. It skips X, Y, Z, and then it goes to the Greek alphabet, I believe.
Yeah, because I was going to say it's hard to come up with letter U names, letter V names.
Q is one of them.
W is Wilma, right? Or no, Wilma was 05.
Wilma was 05.
Well, then we got another one right over there. R.
I'm trying to remember what
Renee.
W is this year.
This is this is a tropical depression. It previously was a tropical storm, but I don't really know with Paulette and stuff if this is going to re-intensify to a storm or hurricane or anything like that. So Renee was a tropical storm that's in closer proximity to Paulette, probably. So
Renee will be a remnant low by tomorrow. It will be a remnant low. So it will be a tropical cyclone, pretty much. That's all it will be.
Yeah, I mean, I think depending on the track of Paulette, maybe what could happen with Renee is that Paulette or Renee may kind of help Paulette strengthen, or the low associated with there. It could congeal or something within there. We don't really know. It could happen, but I mean, it's just closer proximity, if I'm correct. It could be I think in the wake of Paulette, the sea surface temperatures may be slightly a bit lower near the center, and currents and whatnot. It may be slightly colder sea surface temperatures and whatnot are hindering or inhibiting any further convective development with that.
Yeah. September 2020 is just 2020 has not failed to.
It's a mess this year.
Oh man, it's been crazy. I'm currently looking at the 0Z run on Sally from the NAM 3 kilometer. And as I was stating earlier, that some of the models like the NAM and the NAM 3 kilometer have been showing more of a eastward track of landfall, which a lot of the tracks that going near Homa or just to the east of Homa, pretty much right there at the mouth of the Mississippi where the landfall would be made, and then tracking up to New Orleans. On the NAM and the NAM 3 kilometer has landfall being somewhere between Lake Pontchartrain and coast of Mississippi, after making direct landfall in the coast of Mississippi. Here on the NAM 3 kilometer, it's showing landfall at about 973 millibars, which would put it at, I believe, a high-end Category 2, possibly a lower-end Category 3, more than likely higher-end Category 2. I'm about to look at the NAM as well as the GFS, if they have come in yet. I'm assuming that they have. No, the GSF has not. The NAM has. I forget the GFS takes a little longer time to do what it needs to do. So the NAM kind of has the same general idea, but the NAM's tracking even farther east, like potentially even making landfall on the Alabama coast. That's interesting. Let me keep going. I'm gonna go to hour 60. So yeah, hour 60 actually has us making landfall near Destin as a category 2, or lowering category 2, high in category 1. That's very interesting. I don't think that will be. I don't think it'll go that far east, but it will make a more.
Yeah,
I
not
think it'll
that
make
far.
a more east track. But I don't think it'll go that far east. That might just be a really iffy run from the NAM. I don't know how to think about that. The European run's not in. Thanks. Shout out to the Europeans for making a great model, even though their model takes about 8 hours longer to come out with. Oh goodness. The tornado threat going into Wednesday looks a little better, though.
Wow. Well, Cameron, I looked at that this morning.
Florida.
I looked at that this morning, Cameron. It's pretty significant.
The tornado threat's not going to look good at landfall. I think the day after is when the tornado threat's really going to be interesting, because what will end up happening with Sally is just like with Laura, all the precipitation and all those feeder bands are going to be on the northeast and eastern edges of the low, of the remnant low, with not so much of the precipitation being on the western side, or what they call the dry side of these tropical systems. So you'll get a little bit of that mixed wind shear as Sally begins to track more northeast. You'll have your better southwesterly, northeasterly flow, and supercells will have that textbook Dixie Alley kind of southwest and northeast movement, and that's where you could have them potential for tornadoes. It will not be during landfall, I don't think. Like Isaac was saying earlier, the wind shear is just not going to be there at landfall for a substantial tornado threat like most tropical systems would have. Sally doesn't have quite that potential. It will probably be the day after, or even into Wednesday, is where the greater tornado threat will come from Sally.
You want to chase him?
No.
Yeah,
I am currently awaiting fall season to really ramp up here in Dixie, which I think it will. Thanks, shout out to La Nina for showing up again.
The tornado threat, in proximity to where you are, Cameron, I think obviously, parts of the Tennessee Valley into the maybe lower Ohio Valley, it's probably further into the Appalachians.
It's going to be more of the Appalachians, like more of more of the greater tornado threat will pretty much exist from southern Alabama, panhandle of Florida, up into central Alabama, southwest Georgia, and then moving up into the Tennessee Valley, into portions of North Georgia, southeast Tennessee, even northwest South Carolina, as Sally progresses on to the northeast. But the tornado threat will begin to become less and less of a threat as it goes over them elevation changes off to the northeast. I think the max tornado threat with this will come to like the day after landfall, once it begins its actual northeast track, because you'll have that little bit of directional and vertical shear to go along with everything. The fields will be more back, and they'll be in more of a favorable environment and a little favorable terrain wise for tornado threat.
They'll be rain wrapped, I bet.
No, they're gonna be little renegades, little bitty renegades, more than likely, as we usually see with these. It'll be fun to watch.
Sure. And parts of the Tennessee Valley, and obviously this would mostly be Middle Tennessee, not necessarily like West Tennessee, like Jackson, Memphis, all that.
Yeah, this will be more like Chattanooga, even as far north as Knoxville, more of Nashville, point south to Murfreesboro, in northern Alabama, northwest Georgia, even as far into Georgia as like Atlanta and areas in the north central Georgia, western North Carolina, like some of the areas along the Appalachians. It could get pretty.
Yeah, I think the I think the increased tornado threat, it has to do with, obviously, you know how it kind of tracks north, and then there's more of that easterly track. It could be,
It's that northeast tilt,
it
yeah.
could have to do with a cold front maybe interacting, or some kind of trough interacting with Sally. And obviously, further ahead of that, soils, and I think the dew points and whatnot. I think low level, I think surface based Cape, I think that'll be where it's going to be a little bit higher because, I think that with the north track of Sally, the way it is now, is that obviously there's not as much, I think, energy at the ground in terms of like tornadoes. Like maybe localized spin up circulations, like they would have to be really close to the center. And we were just talking with JD earlier about the marginal risk. I think that is really close to the coast, like just confined to a particular small area. That's just a marginal risk anyway. So I mean, that is a very low aerial probability of tornadoes. I mean, just 2% within like 25 miles. I mean, that translates to about 20 to 250 miles. So I mean, that is, I mean, maybe one or two tornadoes could definitely spin up out of this, but I mean, obviously, with the further eastward track, I think there's more energy to work with and vertical directional shear and all that. As you know, I think a cold front or something like that as well. So,
which, like I said, it would probably be that Tuesday, late Tuesday to Wednesday time frame when the greater tornado threat would be in. Like there could be potential for, a slight risk or even an enhanced risk for a 10% tornado risk on Wednesday, I believe, across portions of southern Alabama. Moving into the panhandle of Florida, Sally slowly begins its northeast progression. Because you have that little bit of the interaction zone with the shear and the converging system off to the west. But otherwise, during landfall and points, the day after landfall, the ingredients just aren't really there for a more substantial tornado threat. It probably, like I said, it'd probably be Wednesday. If you really want to go out and try to chase for a tornado threat with Sally, Wednesday's probably your day to do it. But otherwise, if you are a tornado chaser of hurricanes, this is not your system to do it. This is not the one. You had a better chance of seeing tornadoes in Laura, really and truthfully.
But there'll be more hurricanes this year. Probably will have tornadoes with them. Probably, right?
Well, it'll depend on landfalls because right now, as you can see on the screen, 90% of your systems are way off in the Atlantic, nowhere near making landfall anywhere. So, unless there are systems that pop up along the Caribbean and areas like that could make U.S. landfall, right now we have nothing to worry about other than just Sally. Once Sally is gone, we turn our eyes to Teddy and the other systems that are coming off the coast of Africa, see what they do within the next couple of weeks. But right now, we won't have to worry about landfall after Sally for at least another week to 14 days, which is great. It would be a shame if we end up having to deal with landfalls once every 5 to 7 days. That would be very horrible to deal with. But yeah, I don't know. The models really aren't all there, really and truthfully, when it comes to just the overall consensus agreement to what Sally is wanting to do on a scale of landfall and landfall intensity, and even the timings on a lot of this. All the models are very different on the timing of landfall as well. The NAM, or not the NAM, the GFS from the why did it go back to my home screen? But it was looking like the GSF had more of a late Monday to Tuesday landfall, where the NAM had like a midday Tuesday kind of landfall, which, I mean, I don't know. I really, whoa.
There could probably be some model spread in intensity as well. So like the NAM could probably be a little bit further intense. GFS probably downplays it a little further.
Well, I'm looking at the GFS from the 18-0 and it has landfall at category high Cat 2 intensity, 974-ish millibars.
What about NAM?
The The NAM has it going way off into Florida at like 980s, and then the
Yeah.
NAM three,
Oh, yeah.
and then the NAM 3 kilometer had it at 972.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean the NAM model, the standard NAM model probably downplayed it a little bit further than the NAM 3 kilometer. Obviously, the NAM 3 kilometer and GFS are definitely in line with the 972 millibar. But again, the track is what we're more uncertain about, and obviously that's going to
The
lead to how
GFS
things exactly come out.
and based off of this run from the GFS, comparing it to the new NAM 3 kilometer run, they're both pretty similar. Both of these having Mississippi landfalls, somewhere near Gulfport, Biloxi areas in Mississippi is where they're projecting landfall here. So it's more of that eastern track like we were talking before, which I thought was going to be more of the correct play with Sally. Which that would not be good because there's a lot of people who are on vacation down across that way
Yeah,
that have not
I mean that's going to be a
evacuated.
biggest concern. I'm just afraid they're not going to be a people that's are not going to obey the guidelines. What do you guys think?
I think they will. I think people took heed of what happened with Laura, and they really were like, "Okay, we might need to figure out what we're going to do. We're going to have to."
Or if you're not, I'm going to risk your life because the heavy rain, coastal flooding, storm surge is going to be the biggest concern out there.
I'm going to look at something as well too. I am
I
curious
looked
to see
at
what rainfall.
and one sounding showed on the significant tornado parameters. It had a PDS signature today. So what does that mean?
Wow. Hold that thought real quick, JD. I am noticing something here with the GFS as well. It has a lot of the higher rainfall totals as well, going pretty far inland into southwest Alabama and portions of southeastern Mississippi, showing upwards of 20 to 22 inches southeast of Hattiesburg. That's not good. I'm showing 14 to 16 inches here
because that's just going to make the roads flooded.
14 to 16 inches from about Biloxi upwards to about Hattiesburg. It's what it's showing here. And this is going into hour 66. Let me go to hour 84 and see how that looks in there. Wow, that is not good. So, why are you refreshing? I did not ask you to refresh, sir. Thank you. There we go. And it even has very high rainfall totals of 7 to 9 inches now, even going all the way from northwest Georgia up into southwestern Alabama. With, of course, the greatest totals being in Mississippi out of this. It's showing very high totals, probably upwards of 20 inches in places. That's not good.
No,
Yeah,
it's not.
look at the QPF. Obviously, a 1 7 day total. I'm going to focus more on the 1 to 5 day because this kind of like 1 to 3 days. Just even like obviously 15, 20 inch amounts here near the coast. I mean, still sustained at least 10, 15, maybe locally heavier totals, definitely in storms here. And obviously, that's into that would be into Wednesday, and then heading into next weekend. We're watching obviously further into the upper Tennessee Valley. Obviously, areas south of the I-40 corridor seeing a brunt of all this rain. And obviously, this is, I think, the drier, or I mean the areas where there's greater sunshine and instability and whatnot, and obviously all the higher shear. That's obviously kind of accompanying that tornado threat. But 1 to 7 day total, or I'll kind of focus on 1 5 day because this kind of is already the basis of explicitly what's expected to happen with Sally, the remnants as it tracks in the Tennessee Valley, the Appalachians, whatnot. Still some heavier totals. I mean, probably
I just found a total
10-inch amounts across maybe southern Tennessee into North Carolina as well.
Yeah, I just found some totals out of southeastern Mississippi, probably just a little north of Biloxi. of 21 to 20 and a half, on in some areas even near 22 inches.
Here's what Reed Timmer said. I sent it to you, Isaac. Something Reed Timmer said.
That is going to be. I mean, there's widespread 10 to 20 inches everywhere. I mean, even going into the Louisiana coast. But it looks like a lot of the brunt of the main precip will exist across southeastern Mississippi, which is what I was kind of fearing. And even shows a lot of heavier rainfall totals with individual feeder bands even going in from the coast of Florida over, like where areas, like even near Apalachicola, could see up to 8 to 10 inches or more due to feeder bands coming on the coast. It's just something we'll have to keep an eye on.
Well, Reed Timmer said something. It says, update, shift back east from in the GFS in the Eero with a stronger Hurricane Sally with clean landfall along the Mississippi coastline. Don't force too much on the center because light conditions will concur with Louisiana through Mississippi Monday night and Tuesday.
Yeah, I pulled up that Reed Timmer thing. Obviously, I'm gonna look at. Obviously, he kind of posted the differences between the Euro and the GFS. I mean, it looks like they're kind of in line. I mean, obviously, areas just east of Lake Pontchartrain would be Euro. I think areas right around Gulfport, D'Iberville, Mississippi area, I think that's kind of the GFS. I mean, Euro kind of is a little bit deeper in pressure than GFS, the latest trends that I've been looking at here. And I will point out that this is just very minor model spread. So, I mean, there's a greater consensus that, I mean, there's still going to be a broad hurricane impact stretching from obviously areas a little bit west of New Orleans towards, again,
even
parts of the Alabama coast as well. So
yeah, even all the way into portions of the peninsula of Florida.
Yeah, so, sure. I mean, the Pensacola Beach area, Navarre. I mean,
all the way over, even all the way far east Apalachicola with storm surge.
Or Santa Rosa Beach. Who knows?
Yes. Yeah, this will be very widespread impact, especially when it comes to the consensus of storm surge and rainfall totals.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is going to be very widespread. This could be a historic flood event for portions of
I mean,
southern Mississippi,
and Louisiana
Alabama,
are not probably ready for this.
Oh, they're always ready for this. I mean, this is, if you live on the coast, you have to be prepared at all times during this time of the year for hurricanes. Like, that's just what they do. That's why they improved the levee systems in New Orleans after Katrina to better prepare themselves for major hurricanes.
Katrina was bad.
So, I am about to get off here, though, because I'm going to get ready to continue to look through some model data and get ready for work in the morning. So,
yeah, sure. And, I was going to say, to kind of close us off here, obviously, we're looking at potential widespread rainfall impacts across the central Gulf Coast into the Tennessee Valley. Definitely a sustained wind impact. Definitely, we're looking at potential high-end Cat 1, maybe low-end Cat 2 at the very least. I think that's kind of where we're thinking here. Maybe some spread kind of gets us to high-end Cat 2, but I think it would be it all depends on what happens tonight. Again, just how it kind of behaves over water, kind of that slow hovering motion. And it'll definitely be a slow mover. So definitely much more sustained rainfall impact compared to Laura and all those faster moving storm systems. So we're going to have to really keep close attention on that. And I think with that, if any, we will be posting this to our YouTube and everything, and we expect to be back tomorrow afternoon for further coverage. And we've covered what we needed to tonight, I guess. And this will be tracking the Tropics or Tropics Watch for September 13th, 2020. Thanks for joining us, and be safe, and hope